Let's try my end instead.
Oh
That's
yeah,
right.
there's a little recordy button.
I think we're going. I think we're set.
All right.
All right.
So we're definitely recording, aren't we?
We are definitely recording. There's a red blinky thing that definitely means recording.
Perfect. Okay. Hi guys, and welcome to the Zoom edition of On the DL. My name is Dakoda.
And I'm Alannagh Pooley.
Awesome. We're just at home enjoying lockdown, so we thought we didn't want that to stop getting out an episode. So here we are on Zoom.
And hopefully we can give you some information today to help you come out of lockdown a little bit better.
Yes. Hopefully the very short lockdown.
Very short. This better lift.
Hopefully. So we've got a few topics to cover today. We did a few question boxes over the last week and a half, and we got some really good questions on some diets that people have been hearing about, and we kind of want to cover them and just fill people in on the good and bad stuff about them.
And remember, guys, we really are trying to take the practical approach here. So we're not going to overload you with science and all that sort of jazz. We want to give you the practical pros and cons of these things, what really works and what really doesn't. Some of this is opinion-based. Some of this is what we've seen works and what we've seen doesn't work. So, you're more than welcome to share your opinions and have different opinions, but we just want to give you the info that we've been privileged enough to learn over the years and hope that it helps you.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Where are we starting, Jack?
Sweet. All right. Calories in versus calories out. Now, this is I love this one because it's just simplifying such a complex topic.
It really is. So we do understand that to have effective fat loss, there has to be a deficit created. No one in the industry will argue that fact. What you will notice divides the industry, though, is how we go about creating that deficit and the other things that play into it, like macronutrient profiles and micronutrient profiles. And Dakoda and I are both big promoters of making sure that our clients understand the value of these macro and micronutrients. Yes. So the simple short answer to this question is that yes, it's a necessity to create a caloric deficit to achieve successful fat loss or to achieve successful weight loss. But there is so much more that plays into it. And I guess one of the things that we see all the time is that often people think that they've been under eating when in fact they've actually been consuming more calories than they realize that they were consuming. So they think that they've been in a calorie deficit and that the calorie deficit's not working, when in reality, they've actually been eating little things. My husband, if you want to jump on his Instagram, they call him X, he's the perfect example of it. I caught him out having extra milk in his coffees and adding things.
I saw that, extra blueberries.
And I got him.
When has a calorie deficit never worked? Like, give me one time.
That's exactly right. So the situation is that we have to understand what creates a calorie deficit and what things limit it. I think I even did it with you, didn't I, Dak? There was a week where you were getting picky at a few different things. And when I got you to actually calculate it all, were you surprised at how much you accidentally overate without really thinking about it?
I wasn't, honestly. I knew what I was doing.
At least she's honest.
I knew what I was doing, but 100%, like you said, like you kind of don't realize that those little things over, a 7-day period do 100% add up, and that just takes you straight out of the deficit.
That's right. So I guess that's our first sort of fact or fiction bit that we're going to talk about in terms of calories in versus calories out. Are you actually in a deficit? So if you're not actually in a deficit, it's not going to work no matter how you go about it. So ignoring things is not going to solve the problem. Tracking, and it doesn't have to be MyFitnessPal. It can be a diet diary. It can be photographs. It can be anything. Tracking is a great way of getting yourself to be more mindful about your food choices and more aware of them, and that will help to put you into that deficit that you've been chasing that hasn't been working.
Yes.
And then,
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just trackable data. You know,
yeah.
you're not doing it to make yourself feel bad. You're not doing it to be obsessive. You're doing it because you want consistency. You have a goal and you want to be consistent, and you want to lose weight, or you want to gain muscle, like whatever you're kind of going for. You want to make sure that you're actually going to get there, and
Absolutely.
tracking it helps.
Absolutely. And I think Dak and I covered something just before we jumped on here with you guys that we think is fairly valid. One of the simplest ways to start making a significant difference is to track your calories and your protein. So don't get too bogged down in everything, the be all and end all of your carbs, your fats, your micronutrients, Start by tracking something simple, get a really good grasp of it. If you manage to effectively track a calorie deficit and adequate protein, you are going to see positive results in your body composition. So for people who are feeling really overwhelmed, and we get it all the time, don't we, Dak?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and it's a lot, it's very stressful. If you've never done it before, you're going to tracking, nothing to tracking calories, your major macros, your micronutrients, your water intake, pretty much everything under the sun. It can be a little overwhelming.
Absolutely. So if we take it back to basics for a minute and just get you to focus on 2 or 3 little elements that you can make a big change with, we can start to push you in that direction. Then things like macronutrient composition of your intake can start to play in. So we can start to see whether or not your body works better on a higher fat or a higher carb diet. We can play that into, okay, so what sport is this person into, or what's their activity level like, and what are they likely to respond best to? Also things like, what do they like? Like, what do you enjoy? Have to play.
I feel like people forget that part. Like, what food do you actually like to eat?
We have this all or nothing approach to nutrition these days, and it's terrifying because we think we either have to give up everything or it's just not worth it. There's no point in doing it, and it's just not that simple. So
it's great if it was, but it's not.
How much easier would life be? So I think, what it comes down to in terms of calories in versus calories out is, yes, it matters, but it's not the only thing that matters. And it's really important that you have a progressive education in understanding what a deficit is, understanding how to manage a deficit, and then understanding where to move to next to improve that outcome. So I think hopefully we've covered that one for you guys.
If you have any more questions about it, let us know and we'll ramble some more. So exactly like you said it, it's a really good starting point, but it's the starting point, and it just gets more and more complex as the better you get at it, as does everything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think the next one,
is the good quality sleep improves fat loss and overall life, I would say.
Absolutely.
You don't know how, I feel like you don't know how much, a good night's sleep really helps until you just don't get it anymore.
It's true. It's like most things. People don't realize how bad their bloating is until they're not bloated. People don't realize how bad their sleep is till they get a good night's sleep. It's so forth.
Yep.
But look, the fact of the matter is poor sleep has several physiological knock-on effects, right? So we're not talking about you just wake up tired, so everything goes to
so much worse than that.
It's so much more than that. So I've spoken to most of my clients about the effect that poor quality sleep has on several hormones in the body. So I'll cover a few of those with you guys now. So when we have poor quality sleep, we get a reduction in leptin, which is our satiety hormone. So ironically, because we've had poor sleep, our body thinks that we need to be fed more so that we can survive the next day, manage it, and get through it. So it decreases our satiety response whilst it increases ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone. So it's making us more hungry and less satiated. so that we get more fuel in, which from a survival perspective is understandable. The problem is we don't have that issue anymore. So whereas once upon a time it was difficult to come across food, now we have food
Yes.
right and centre at 3 o'clock in the morning that we can run out and grab. So we don't have the survival issue anymore, but our body is still in tune with it. Then to top that off, poor sleep will increase your cortisol response across the day. Now, I want to point out, cortisol is not bad. Cortisol is a necessary response that the body has to stress. But when we're having a chronic stress response, so when the cortisol doesn't drop back down, or when the cortisol doesn't do what it's supposed to do across the day, that's when we have problems. That increase in cortisol, it leads to us wanting foods that create sort of a reward for us, or things that might create a serotonin response or a dopamine response.
Those sugary, salty treats.
Absolutely. So instead of going for the things that we know we should, so the things that will nourish us and the things that will keep us feeling full, we go to exactly that. The sugary sweets, the caffeine, da-da-da-da. And then the knock-on effect is too much sugar, too much caffeine. We have another poor night's sleep, and then we're in the same situation tomorrow. So there are physiological reasons why our fat loss is affected by our poor sleep. Now, there are 101 different things. Like Dak and I were talking before about recovery, and you were saying that you've noticed this one, haven't you, Gorge?
Yeah, 100%. You know, like it's recovery. It's like you said, you know, obviously sleep is going to affect weight loss, and it's not purely weight loss. It's just the mechanics of how you actually get there. And it's the same as training. Like, you know, the difference between a really good training session and a really fucking shit one. And that's, you know, you wake up from the sleep, you're hungry, you're probably eating something that you shouldn't have, which is stuffed your gut up. You go in, you try and train, the energy's not there, your recovery is not there, and therefore the next day you're going to pull up way more sore, and you're also not going to get, like, with you know, you don't get a good quality sleep, you're obviously not going to recover, you're not going to repair, you're not going to grow. All of that's going to be severely slowed down. So it's like it affects all everything you can imagine. It affects.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got the knock-on effects of growth hormone being affected, protein synthesis being affected. For men in particular, testosterone can drop as well.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about, like we said, we're not talking about, okay, I woke up feeling crabby, I just can't be bothered doing anything today. We're talking about both psychological and physiological aspects of this, you know? So prioritizing sleep is huge. There are some very simple things that if we prioritize would give us payback tenfold. So like we said, if you want fat loss, you need to be in a calorie deficit and have adequate protein. If you want to gain lean mass, you need to be in a surplus and you need to have adequate protein.
Adequate protein.
Pretty simple. Then we move on to things like sleep and water. If we have good quality sleep, it improves all of these systems that we've covered. And if we're getting adequate water, all of the metabolic reactions in the human body that require water to go forward, which is pretty much all of them, are going to operate more consistently and at a better rate. So what we want you to take away from this, guys, is the little things that make the big differences, rather than focusing on the little things that make next to no difference. I think, Dak, you would agree that we get asked more often about supplements than we do about food, right? Like everyone wants the pill that's going to achieve this, rather than the dietary intervention that's going to achieve it. And what we want to get people understanding is that that's just not relevant. No pill, no supplement that you take, no quick fix is going to get you where you want to go and allow you to stay there.
I feel like, especially with this next topic as well, I feel like people almost want the journey to be too complicated or too hard, so that they fail and then they stay where they are. I almost feel like a lot of people do want it to be too hard, so they overcomplicate it and think that they have to go out and buy all of these things, take all of these things, you know, I have to sleep 10 hours a night, I can't do that, I'll just continue on my 7. And it's like, well, that's not what we're saying.
No. It's self-sabotage, isn't it? It's that self-sabotage, because we all have that innately. We just apply it to different circumstances. I have something funny that happens to me a lot in clinic is I'll get people that rock up in clinic that tell me that, let's say, for instance, intermittent fasting worked really well for them. And my answer to them is always, if it worked so well, why are you in my office? So why do you need me if it's working so well for you? If this system is perfect and it's getting you where you need to go, you shouldn't need me. But the fact that you're here means that it doesn't actually work for you. It means that that's it. It means that it was able to give you rapid fat loss in a short period of time that you were unable to maintain for whatever reason. So let's look at it from that perspective. So whilst we're on the topic,
intermittent fasting.
So we got this one a few times, didn't we, on the questions board?
Yeah, yes. And I feel like over the last few years, it's gotten really popular. I've seen it more and more pop up on Instagram and people talking about it. And it's quite the heated topic, because I feel like people that do it are like, this is it. This is all I want to do. This is all I want to talk about. And everyone else is like, why?
Yeah. And it's one of the things that should factor into this for you guys is, do you enjoy it? Is it beneficial for you from a structure perspective? So some people work a really heavy duty job where they can't really access food for 8 hours a day, right? If this is you, then intermittent fasting may be a really effective way to eat.
Yeah.
It's effective because it suits your lifestyle, though, not effective because it's this magic solution. The way intermittent fasting works in fat loss is exactly the same way keto works in fat loss, high carb diets work in fat loss, You create
eating well.
That's it. You're eating more mindfully and you're creating a calorie deficit. That is how it's working. There is no magic trick to it. There are other side effects that some people experience that are positive. We're not trying to talk people out of doing intermittent fasting. We're just trying to make sure people don't think they need to do it for no apparent reason.
Yes.
You know, we want people to understand that if you feel better on intermittent fasting, I have very close friends and colleagues who are incredibly well educated who find that they have a clearer mind if they intermittently fast in the morning and they get more work done and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
If that works for you, great, do it. By all means, do it. Same with digestive discomfort. There are patients that I have that find that if they fast, particularly until sort of 12 or 1 o'clock, they're able to move their bowel in the morning and feel more comfortable when they start eating throughout the day.
Yeah.
That, again, is totally fine. We're A-okay with that. We're not worried about you. We're here to tell the general population that creating a restrictive situation where you can only eat between this time and this time is not going to facilitate your fat loss any better than having a calorie restricted broad range diet that you eat across the day.
Yeah, I think that ultimately it comes down to your why. Like you said, like if you've got a job that you physically can't eat and you're stressing about that, then intermittent fasting is definitely going to help you in that. If you're doing it because you can't control yourself, then you need to think about why you can't control yourself. You know, why are you on, you know, is your deficit too large? Why are you finding the need to not eat at all? It's like that all or nothing approach. Like I think intermittent fasting works for the right people, but it ultimately comes down to why you're doing it. Are you doing it to help you and that you're happy? Or are you doing it to cover, glorify eating disorder?
Yeah, we were talking about this before. If for a lot of people, we feel it can be a Band-Aid approach, don't we, Dak? It's just this way of shrinking. If you're in a deficit, only being able to eat for 6 hours means that you can have 3 large meals over 6 hours, which might make you feel like you're getting more food, which, as we discussed, when you're, you know, we sometimes have competitors that have to do a cut either for a bodybuilding show or a powerlifting competition or something along those lines. And if we have to reduce their food significantly for that purpose. Sometimes it can be really effective to reduce the feeding window because people do tend to get more hungry once they've eaten. So once you've had your first meal of the day, it secretes gastric juices. It does all of these things that trigger you to be more hungry. So of course, a couple of hours later, your body's going to be telling you that you want more food. In a situation wherein you're in a significant deficit and you have to stay in that significant deficit, it can be purposeful. But like you said before, Dak, if you're in a significant deficit that's not actually benefiting you, so if you're putting yourself, if your basal metabolic rate is 1,300 calories a day and you're eating 1,200 calories a day, this is not a solution for you. This is just a way of justifying eating too little for your body to function. And I think that's where people get confused, isn't it? And the psychological component is huge. You've had it more than I have recently. I guess a lot of my clients come in with digestive issues and that sort of jazz, whereas Dak gets a lot more weight loss clients. And you see it probably more frequently than I do, where people they create this confinement in terms of their nutrition because they think that that's going to allow them to have a better state of control. And the truth is it will short term, but it won't long term, right? So there's only so much time you can spend feeling deprived, feeling depleted, being unable to join in at your son or daughter's birthday party because, you know, if you eat that piece of cake and it's 10 o'clock instead of 11 o'clock, it's going to affect you differently somehow. You know, all of these
cake.
All of these things factor in. So it's just interesting. It's interesting to look at the fact versus fiction side of things. So we believe that intermittent fasting can be a useful tool for a small percentage of the population. For the rest of the population, it's probably not useful, and it's certainly not going to improve your fat loss just because you have a smaller eating window.
Yes. At the end of the day, you're not eating less. You're just eating less through the day and eating the exact same amount at night. And one of the things that really upsets me about when people do this is you have people, they have that 6-hour window to eat, and most of the time, like, they're on 1,800 to 2,200 calories, which is quite a lot for 6 hours. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know how much good food you could fit in that window. I don't know, like, that's a lot of bloody food, like, that's a lot of volume, and that's not going to happen. So obviously you're going to go to ice cream or, you know, foods that don't really have any nutritional value whatsoever.
You're definitely going to skew towards energy dense foods instead of nutritionally dense foods. And I guess that goes back to your Band-Aid suggestion before, Gorgeous One, where it's like, it's a way, it's almost self-sabotage in itself, because it's a way of telling yourself that it's okay to eat bad foods as long as it's within these constraints, right? Even though deep down, you know that eating Nutella and ice cream and protein powder is not an adequate way to cover your nutrition, but you can do it. And the irony is that you can get aesthetics out of that. You can get lean and you can get a little bit. Yeah, but you won't be healthy. It's a far cry from being healthy.
No, I mean, you look great, but you won't look good on the inside.
And that's it. And long term, what matters more, health or aesthetics, right? So health has to be the core of any nutritional plan you follow. And if it's not, you really need to be questioning why you're following that plan.
100%. And I feel like when you ask that question, I would be afraid of majority of people's answers.
Yeah.
I just want to look good. I don't care what it takes.
That's right. That is the answer we get most of the time, isn't it? And it's, look, at the end of the day, what was the old saying? If you don't make time for bodily exercise now, you'll have to make time for illness later. That's what it is. You know, like if you're making these choices that are all about aesthetics now, they're not necessarily going to facilitate this beneficial situation in the future. So let's prioritize health first and foremost, make sure that we're putting ourselves in a position where we can maintain the results that we get with our fat loss, lean mass gain, whatever it may be. And then we're not only setting ourselves up for a great little outcome from our fat loss diet, we're setting ourselves up for a healthy future for ourselves, for our kids, so on and so forth. And, you know, kids listen, kids hear it when you're talking about being fat all the time. You know, if you're constantly talking about diet this, diet that, that's what your kids are going to grow up believing is necessary. If you teach them that eating healthy is the priority, that's also what they're going to grow up believing. So, you know, let's start skewing the conversation that way, hey?
Yeah, I excuse me, I actually saw a post on Instagram, I think yesterday. It was about like it was like simple foods and how you should like talk to kids about them, like just like what you would normally say and then what you should say to articulate and obviously you know, help them pay attention, actually take it on. It was actually really interesting. And I wholeheartedly believe that, like, you know, you force things on kids and they're not going to listen, but it's like if you just make it their world, it'll just be normal as they grow.
Exactly right, Gorge. Yeah. All right, well, we have one more here.
Have we rambled enough, or is
Yeah, we're good at this. This was the whole plan, though, because at the end of the day, what were we trying to do? The whole point of on the DL here is the simple topics. That's it. The simple topics that get covered in 2 sentences on Instagram that we're not happy with the answers for. We want to cover more information. We want to deliver it. Whoever wants to listen to it can listen to it. All right.
Exactly.
So last but not least for today, one thing that we also get asked about quite a lot is, you know, why can't I just do more exercise if I want to lose fat? So, you know, if it's energy in versus energy out, why can't I just exercise more, and why won't that just resolve the problem? So Dakoda, being the amazing coach you are and training people on the daily, how do you reckon they'd go pulling up from a 200 kilo squat and then going into, you know, a metabolic session the next day?
Oh my God. Well, if anyone's ever competed in powerlifting, you know that like during a competition, you're like, oh, I can't wait to get back to the gym. I'm going to smash it. Like, can't wait for my new program. And then after the day, you're like, I don't want to touch a barbell ever again. It's quite sad, actually. Like, I find majority of people are in that mindset of they need to do more to get more out of it. You know, why can't I train for 2 hours, 7 days a week? And it's like, did you know that you can get the exact same results, if not better, from 3 to 4 sessions for an hour and a half? Like, you're literally spending time there, but you're wasting your time. Like, the amount of recovery and the stress responses from the training, you can't keep up. And I recently experienced this from I went from powerlifting to CrossFit, and I was like, all right, so I've stopped doing 2-hour sessions 5 days a week, and now I'm going to do CrossFit. I'm like, well, these hour sessions don't even, like, I only train for like 30 minutes to 45 minutes in each one. That is nothing. So for about 8 weeks, I did 7 to 9 sessions a week. And it took my body about 8 weeks to tell me to piss off. And I just got really fatigued, and like, I didn't want to train. I was so sore, and it took my body about a week and a half to really fully recover. I'm fine now, but
can you tell people what you experienced, Dak? So it's not just muscle soreness, is it? It's the fatigue, the water retention, the inflammation, all of that sort of jazz. It's not just sore muscles that you're creating. You're creating
will to live.
Yeah. And you're creating a situation where, all right, so you've done this epic 8 weeks of training your little tush off. Now you can only train 3 times a week because you're so fatigued and that's all you can manage. Secondarily, you've got this chronic inflammation response now, and chronic inflammatory responses stop us from losing body fat as well. So the human body is all about taking care of itself, and it has heaps of systems to make sure that we don't screw it up. We keep trying, but it always wins. So the easiest example of this that I can use is in bodybuilding and powerlifting. We sometimes use a tool for weight loss called water loading. And water loading can be really effective, but it's also really unpredictable, right? So the reason it's unpredictable is the human body has a dozen different mechanisms that regulate our fluid. We are trying to fool those 12 different mechanisms when we do a water load. So when we do a water load, we take in a bucket load more water than we normally do, at least 2.5 to 3 litres more than we normally do a day. And we rely on the body to flush out not only that extra, but a little bit more, right? And that in turn drops our body weight so that we can jump on the scales a kilo or 2 lighter and make it into our weight class and then go and smash some Gatorade to fix the problem. But if the body compensates, if the body goes through its compensatory mechanisms sooner than we predict that it does, it can also go the other way. So this is the same system that happens in the human body across the board. So the human body will fight back. Anytime we take it out of equilibrium, every time we disturb a process that it has in status quo, it's going to fight to get it back into status quo. So if you overtrain and your cortisol response is insane, and then your protein synthesis isn't adequate, because how much can you repair if you're training twice a day, 3 days a week? Your body starts to go, right, I'm going to shut down all of the mechanisms that aren't super useful for me right now. I'm going to slow down everything so that I can focus on what's necessary. So all of those symptoms that you experience, and your body is really responsive, and that probably has a lot to do with the fact that you're so well trained for so many years, and because your nutrition is fairly on point most of the time, that when it's not, your body fights back hard, real hard.
Oh, it fought back. It fucking fought back. It's funny you should say that about the water load. I've actually experienced, well, I've water loaded a lot in my powerlifting career, but I did it once and it didn't work. And I was like, what's going on? Like, I'm doing everything I should be. I don't understand why it's not working. I've had that happen once. And
that's like, most, to be honest, I've seen it it's usually effective in powerlifters, because powerlifters aren't usually in massive deficits and watching their salts and whereas in bodybuilding, it's a lot more temperamental, because there's so much restriction in bodybuilding that your sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and bicarb all have the power to impact it. So you've got all of these other things playing in. But it can be for a number of reasons. It could be that you were dehydrated to begin with, so your body actually responded to it by taking up more cellular water, which is ironic. I had, I'm going to dog Freaky Deaky in. I have been banging on for years to Alex Dakin about drinking more water. This guy is an insane powerlifter, for those of you out there who don't know him.
Insane.
But I'd been banging on to him for years about it, and then we did a practice water load for one of his competitions coming up, and he sent me a message and said, "Len, am I supposed to feel better on a water load?" And I said, "No, Bob, I think that's just because you've been dehydrated this whole time." So it puts it into perspective for you. The human body knows what it needs. It's got negative feedback loops. It's got all of these different things that it can rely on to bring the status quo back. So let's stop focusing on what we can do to outsmart it. Stop smashing the caffeine thinking that it's going to make you burn more calories. Stop taking all of these supplements.
Pre-workouts and...
That's it. All these subs that promise you this and promise you that. Get focused on the 80%. Stop focusing on that 20%. 80% is move regularly, whatever kind of sport you're in, or whether you just walk, or whether you swim or yoga, it doesn't matter. Move regularly. Set your caloric intake based on your movement and your metabolic rate. And if you're fortunate enough to know your body composition, use your lean mass to determine that, because it will help you to get a more accurate read on it. Then make sure you're getting adequate protein, improve your sleep quality. Look at things like, how can I manage my intake to best serve me? What frequency of meals is going to work best for me? How should I plan my day? Should I have more carbohydrates when I'm more active and less carbohydrates when I'm less active? Things like that. And then you've got 80% of it covered, guys. Then the 20% can start factoring in. But until you get that 80% on point, stop worrying about the little 1%ers that add up to that little peak of the pyramid that we're all always trying to sell to people, right?
All trying to get to. I know. That's where the money making is, though, in that little triangle.
It's true.
That's where it is for BCAAs and all that crap.
That's right. And some of them are useful. Like, we're not trying to talk down all supplements. Some of them are useful, but probably not if you're only training twice a week and your diet is crap, right? Like, yes. It's probably not going to make any significant difference.
Probably not. Just going to take your money, really.
Exactly.
But you wouldn't need. Yeah, well, you wouldn't need to buy, all of those supplements for recovery, or like a Theragun, or, all of those little things, if you just trained the amount that your body can actually handle. Because if you're trying to train 7 days a week, you're not prehabbing, you're not eating enough protein, you're not sleeping enough, you're not drinking enough water, like your body just can't handle it. Like, you're not setting your body up to be able to recover from 7 sessions. So maybe do 4, and then that time that you have, use it to rehab, use it to prep your food, to make sure you're buying the right shit to accommodate recovery. Really
use it to do the 80%. It's exactly. It's simple. All right. Well, I think we've covered our topics for today, but we're pretty excited to get this one out for you guys. We've got another one coming shortly. But thanks for listening to us. Hopefully, we've given you some good talking points to go out and chat with all of your mates. But
just throw the information in their face. Just throw it right out.
Like, this is why we don't do this. But
hopefully the next episode will actually be face to face, in person.
Live and in person. Nice. We're excited for that. But thank you all for listening. And we're excited to have you back for our next round.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Stay safe.
Be good, guys.
Bye.